The documentaries, fictional stories, and poems on this channel contain mature themes including psychological horror, violence, death, self-harm, mental health crises, and other disturbing subject matter. If you're sensitive to dark content, this may not be for you. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Greetings, Truth Seeker. I am the Howlerist, and tonight we uncover how deeply you've been infiltrated, how a miracle product became the poison in your veins, and now it's inescapable. Since you're already here, why not join the pack and subscribe? Now, settle in. You can't escape it. It's already inside of you, and it's been there for years. The miracle. Let me tell you a story about the greatest innovation of the modern age. A miracle material that was lighter than glass, stronger than wood, cheaper than metal, and moldable into any shape imaginable. Plastic. In the early 20th century, brilliant minds created something extraordinary called bakelite, the first truly synthetic material. It insulated our electrical systems, made our telephones possible, and brought technology into every home. It was built to last, to endure, to serve humanity for generations, and it did exactly that. But then, something changed. After the Second World War, the oil industry found itself with a problem: massive refining capacity and mountains of petrochemical byproducts. But peacetime doesn't need nearly as much fuel as war does. So they found another use for it. Plastic, but not the durable, lasting kind. A new kind that was cheap, disposable, and could be everywhere. An alliance was formed between those who produced plastic and those who wanted cheap packaging. Together, they didn't just sell you products, they sold you a lifestyle, a modern, convenient, hygienic lifestyle. Throwaway living, they called it, and they called it progress. Reusable glass bottles became old-fashioned. Return deposits became inconvenient, and the future became disposable. Use it once, toss it away, forget about it. And you believed them because we all did. The Great Deception. By the 1970s, people started noticing that plastic was everywhere. Beaches, oceans, landfills overflowing with containers that would never rot, never decay, never disappear. So the industries that created this mess needed a solution. Not to the problem itself, but a solution to your concern about the problem. Recycling. They put those little triangular arrows on every bottle, every container, every piece of packaging, and told you that if you just put it in the right bin, it would all be okay. Recycled, reborn, circular. But here's what they didn't tell you. What internal documents later revealed they knew all along. Recycling was never going to work at scale because it was too expensive, too difficult, too contaminated. Only about 9% of all the plastic ever made has actually been recycled. 9%. The rest is still out there, every piece of it, breaking down into smaller and smaller fragments, but never truly disappearing. Because plastic doesn't die, it just transforms. The invisible invasion. This is where the story takes a turn, where it stops being about pollution out there and becomes about something much closer to home. When plastic breaks down from sunlight, from waves, from friction, from time, it doesn't vanish. It shatters into pieces so small you can't see them. Microplastics, pieces smaller than a grain of sand, smaller than a cell. And these fragments move through air, through water, through soil, into plants, into animals, into fish, and into you. Right now, as you listen to my voice, there are microplastic particles in your bloodstream and in your lungs. Scientists have found them in human brain tissue and in the placenta of pregnant mothers, crossing into their unborn children before they take their first breath. You are not just exposed to plastic. You contain plastic. Let me show you how complete the infiltration is. A contaminated day. This morning, you woke up on a mattress with foam cushioning and a synthetic fabric cover releasing particles. Your head resting on a pillow filled with polyester or memory foam. You walked across your carpet, and if it's not wool, and let's be honest, it probably isn't, those synthetic fibers of polyester or nylon released particles into the air. With every step, you sat on your couch, with its foam cushions wrapped in fabric, more synthetic fibers shedding with every movement. And your curtains, unless they're linen or cotton, released fibers every time you touched them or air moved past them. The very walls surrounding you are coated in acrylic paint, a plastic film that slowly degrades and releases particles into the air as it ages, cracks, and flakes into dust. You're breathing all of this constantly. Studies estimate we breathe in over 16 pieces of microplastic every single hour, just sitting at home in what we think is our safe space, our sanctuary. You shower behind a plastic curtain made of PVC or polyester, perhaps surrounded by laminated shower panels instead of tiles. More plastic releasing particles in the heat and steam. You squeeze shampoo from a plastic bottle, shampoo that itself contains microplastics as tiny beads, thickeners, and film formers. After your shower, you apply face cleanser containing microbeads designed to exfoliate, scrubbing plastic directly into your pores. You put on makeup, foundation, mascara, lipstick, formulated with plastic polymers and packaged in plastic. You spray on sunscreen or insect repellent, aerosolized plastics and chemicals designed to penetrate your skin, which they do efficiently because that's exactly what they're engineered for. You brush your teeth with a plastic toothbrush using toothpaste from a plastic tube, likely containing microplastics in the formula itself, scrubbing plastic particles directly onto your gums, where they can enter your bloodstream through the soft tissue of your mouth. You get dressed, and unless every piece of your clothing is 100% natural fiber, and be honest, is it? You're wrapping yourself in polyester, acrylic, nylon, and spandex, woven into the waistband of your underwear. Your clothes shed with every movement, as friction releases thousands of microfibers into the air around you. Here's something beautiful in its horror. Even if you bought expensive, pure cotton clothing and washed it separately, it's still contaminated. Because most laundry detergents contain plastic thickeners, your washing machine retains fibers from previous loads of synthetic clothing, and the drum spins fabrics together in contaminated water. There is no clean option. Eating plastic. You sit down for breakfast with coffee in a paper cup, lined with plastic to make it waterproof, or tea from a bag that's often sealed with plastic. and releases microplastics into your hot water. That chewing gum you're having? Synthetic rubber, which is plastic. You cook your eggs in a non-stick frying pan. That Teflon coating is a fluoropolymer, a type of plastic. And you flip them with a plastic spatula that releases particles when heated. Canned food has an inner lining of plastic-based epoxy containing BPA or BPA alternatives, leaching directly into your food before you even open it. Fresh food then, you think, safer, right? But the fish you eat has been swimming in oceans saturated with microplastics. And it's already inside the fish, just as it's inside the plants grown in contaminated soil and watered with contaminated rain. Bottled water contains hundreds of thousands of nanoplastic particles in a single liter, and tap water, while less contaminated, still contains them. There is nowhere clean left to drink from. Even aluminum cans are still lined with plastic. You store your leftovers in plastic containers and reheat them in the microwave, the heat causing plastics to leach even faster into your food. You cover bowls with cling wrap that sits directly against what you're about to eat, transferring plasticizers into every meal you save for later. After your meal, you load the dishwasher, hot water and detergent combining with the heat to release more particles from plastic dishes and utensils, coating everything in a fine mist of contamination that doesn't rinse away. The intimate contamination. Remember that cozy blanket your grandmother knitted for you? If it was made from acrylic yarn, and most are, she spent hours handling plastic and breathing in the fibers it released, creating something with love that sheds microplastics every time you use it. Those baby booties she made release plastic particles for an infant to breathe and put in their mouth. Your glasses, unless they're pure glass lenses with metal frames, are plastic on your face all day. Your contact lenses are plastic directly on your eyes. Your phone, your keyboard, your remote control, the pen you chew on while thinking. Constant contact means particles collecting under your fingernails and transferred to your mouth every time you eat with your hands, bite your nails, or touch your face, which you do constantly because everyone does. We can't help it. Condoms are made from latex treated with plasticizers, polyurethane or polyisoprene, bringing plastic into direct contact with mucous membranes during one of our most intimate moments. Those membranes are far more permeable than skin, meaning the chemicals and microplastics go directly into highly absorbent tissue that readily allows them into the bloodstream. Beyond the home, every car on the road grinds plastic tires into dust with every rotation, creating one of the largest sources of microplastic pollution that most people never think about. That tire dust doesn't just disappear. It settles on roads and gets washed into storm drains when it rains, flowing into rivers, lakes, and oceans. Some water treatment plants can filter out larger particles, but the smallest microplastics and nanoplastics pass right through and end up in drinking water supplies. The dust also seeps down through soil into groundwater stores deep in the earth, contaminating the aquifers we drill wells into for clean water. We breathe tire dust walking near roads. We drink it in our water, and we eat plants grown in soil contaminated by it. There is no escape from what we've paved our world with. When medicine becomes poison, perhaps you think you'll avoid all of this, that you'll be careful. But what happens when you get sick? The IV drip saving your life uses plastic tubing and plastic bags, with those medications leaching plastic directly into your veins. Your asthma inhaler is plastic, and the stent keeping your coronary artery open after a heart attack is a metal mesh coated in plastic polymers that release medication, permanently lodged in your artery and leaching into your bloodstream forever. Blood transfusions come from plastic bags. Dialysis runs your blood through plastic tubes, and even dental fillings often use composite resin. The Band-Aid covering your wound is plastic adhered to your skin, and the face mask protecting you from illness is made of plastic fibers you breathe through for hours. You can't even be saved without being contaminated. There's something else that makes this even worse. Plastic doesn't stay inert, but becomes a habitat for biofilm, which is communities of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms that colonize every plastic surface in moist environments. Your water bottle develops biofilm, your shower curtain harbors it, and the microplastics in the ocean carry entire ecosystems of microbes, some of which are pathogenic disease-causing organisms living on the plastic you drink from, and the plastic particles fish consume before you eat them. The plastic isn't just poisoning you with chemicals, it's delivering passengers. The inescapable truth. Now here's the question that should terrify you. Can you remove it? Can you detox, cleanse, or purge the plastic from your body? The answer is no. Some particles might pass through your digestive system, but the ones that have crossed into your bloodstream, lodged in your lung tissue, embedded in your organs, or crossed into your brain, have no known method of extraction. We have no treatment and no cure. Activated charcoal doesn't work. Chelation therapy doesn't work. And no cleanse, no fast, no detox protocol has any evidence of removing microplastics from human tissue once they're embedded there. They are there, possibly permanently, and we simply don't know what they're doing to us. Scientists have confirmed microplastics in human brain tissue, and animal studies show they can cause inflammation, but do they contribute to cognitive decline, to dementia, to neurological damage? We don't know yet. Do they disrupt hormones? The chemicals in plastic, phthalates and BPA, are endocrine disruptors found in our bodies. But what are the long-term effects? We don't know yet. Are they causing the rise in infertility, in developmental issues, and cancers? We don't know yet. You are part of an experiment, an uncontrolled global experiment with 7 billion test subjects. And the results won't be clear for generations. The transformation. Every baby born today enters the world already contaminated, their first breath drawing in plastic particles, their entire lives unfolding in a world where plastic is not just around them, but inside them from the very beginning. The newborn is dressed in synthetic clothing, wrapped in a plastic-lined nappy worn against their skin 24 hours a day, and cleaned with wet wipes made of plastic fibers that parents lovingly wipe across delicate skin. The baby breathes air filled with microplastics from the carpets, curtains, and furniture surrounding their crib, absorbing contamination with every breath of their new life. What will they become? And what are we becoming? We created a miracle material that would last forever. And now, it's ensuring that we never escape it because it's in our blood, our organs, and our children. We have become the hosts, and the plastic has become permanent. Even knowing all of this, every word I've just told you, what will you change tomorrow? And what can you change? You'll still brush your teeth, still wear clothes, still eat, still drink, still breathe. Because the plastic is everywhere, in everything, including you. You might ask, what are the alternatives? What could we use instead to freeze our food, to hold our rubbish, to wrap and package what we need to preserve? Glass containers and metal tins, perhaps, but they're heavier to transport, more expensive to produce, and they shatter. Paper and cardboard, but they need plastic lining to hold liquids. Wax coatings, but they don't seal as well. Natural fibers for bags, but they rot when wet. The truth is, we built an entire civilization's infrastructure around plastic's unique properties, and dismantling it means redesigning everything, from supply chains to storage systems to medical equipment. The alternatives exist, but they require a complete reimagining of how we live, and more importantly, they require the industries that profit from plastic to surrender their empires. And that won't happen because you recycle your bottles or bring a reusable bag to the shops. The system is too vast, too entrenched, too profitable. So I'll leave you with these questions. How much of you is still human? How much is plastic? And when does the transformation become complete? The Scouring, Chapter 1. Arrival. Elias had always been good with his hands growing up. He was the kid who took apart toasters and put them back together just to see how they worked. As an adult, he'd turned that curiosity into a career, traveling from town to town, fixing what was broken. Water treatment plants, municipal systems, aging infrastructure. If it pumped, filtered, or flowed, Elias could make it work again. It was a solitary life, living out of motel rooms and truck stops. But it suited him. There was something honest about the work, something satisfying about solving a problem that had stumped everyone else. The call from Diligent had come on a Monday. Equipment failure and pressure drops in the filtration system. Nothing unusual. Just another aging plant limping along until something finally broke down enough to justify the expense of bringing someone in. Diligent appeared through the morning mist like something from a painting. The valley cupped the town gently, rolling hills thick with forest rising on all sides. Main Street stretched through the center, lined with brick storefronts that looked like they'd been there since before the highways came. Elias parked his truck outside Marge's diner, drawn by the smell of fresh coffee and the promise of a good breakfast. Inside, the waitress appeared at his elbow almost immediately. "Morning, hun. Coffee?" Her smile was wide and pleasant, though her eyes stayed oddly flat, focused somewhere past his shoulder. "Please, and the special, if you've got it." "We've got it." She poured his coffee in one smooth motion, the liquid hitting the cup at exactly the same level as she'd poured for the man 3 stools down. "Enjoy your meal." Elias ate slowly, watching the town wake up outside the window. A woman walked past, pushing a stroller, her pace perfectly metronomic. 2 men stood outside the hardware store across the street, both nodding at exactly the same tempo as they spoke. Small-town rhythms, Elias thought, everyone moving to the same quiet drum. At the register, the old man working the counter took his money without a word, just held Elias's gaze for 3, 4, 5 seconds before finally blinking and counting out change. The motel was called the Valley Rest, a single-story strip of rooms at the edge of town where the forest pressed close. The woman at the desk, Nancy, according to her name tag, processed his check-in with mechanical efficiency. "Enjoy your stay," she said, the words delivered in the same pleasant, empty tone as the waitress. Elias unpacked his suitcase in the small room, laying out his work clothes for the morning. Through the window, Diligent spread out in the gathering dusk, lights coming on in perfect synchronization down the street. It was peaceful here, quiet, the kind of place where you could actually hear yourself think. He found himself smiling as he settled into bed. This job might take a week, maybe more. He could use the break. The Diligent water treatment plant sat on the northern edge of town, a squat concrete structure that had probably been cutting edge in the 1960s. Now it just looked tired. Peeling paint, rusted fencing, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. Elias met the plant manager, Bill, in the main office. The man was thin, with watery eyes that kept darting to the window, then back to Elias, then away again. "She's old," Bill said, leading him through the facility. "Real old. Been running nonstop since '67. We do what we can. Patch here, replace there." He trailed off, one hand tapping against his thigh in a steady rhythm. The plant hummed around them, a deep mechanical drone that Elias could feel in his teeth. They descended into the lower levels where the bore pump pulled water up from the aquifer far below. The air was cooler here, damp, thick with the smell of old concrete and machine oil. Pipes ran overhead in tangled clusters, some wrapped in crumbling insulation, others sweating with condensation. "Main issues are infiltration," Bill said. "Pressure's been dropping, flow rates off. Something's not moving through like it should." Elias spent the first few days just getting familiar with the system. Tracing pipes, checking valves, making notes. The plant was a maze of retrofits and emergency repairs, decades of quick fixes layered on top of each other, but the bones were solid. It just needed someone who understood how all the pieces fit together. He fell into a comfortable routine. Coffee at Marge's each morning, where the waitress always appeared at his elbow at exactly the right moment. Work at the plant, where the machinery groaned and shuddered in patterns he was starting to recognize. Dinner that first Tuesday at the small Chinese place on Main Street, where he ordered the sauté chicken, no vegetables, and ate at the counter watching the evening traffic. Back to the motel where Nancy always said, "Have a good evening," in that same pleasant, hollow voice. The oddness of it all sat at the back of his mind like white noise, present but easy to ignore. Small towns had their own way of doing things, their own rhythms. He'd seen it before. Chapter 2. The Discovery. It was late Thursday night, nearly the end of his first week, when Elias finally accessed the deep filtration chambers. The main valve had been rusted shut, and it had taken him most of the day to work it free. When it finally gave, releasing with a deep, grinding shriek, he pulled the access panel away and shone his flashlight into the cavity beyond. The filters were choked, not with sediment or mineral buildup, but with something else, something that glistened in the flashlight beam. Translucent and faintly luminous, it clung to the filter housings in thick ropes, pulsing slightly with the pressure of the water trying to push through. As Elias stared, a section of it seemed to shiver, contracting and then slowly expanding again like something breathing. His breath caught in his throat. This wasn't rust, wasn't algae, wasn't anything he'd ever seen in 40 years of working with water systems, but it was blocking the flow. And that was his job, to get the system running again. He reached in carefully, trying to scrape the mass away from the filter housing. It was cold, shockingly cold, and slick, like touching the inside of something living. It clung to his bare hands, strands of it stretching as he pulled away. And for just a moment, he could have sworn it was pulling back, trying to draw him closer. It took him nearly an hour to clear enough of it to restore proper flow. The stuff kept accumulating on his bare hands, his coveralls, his forearms, where he'd had to reach deep into the chamber. When he was done, he wiped his hands on his coveralls, then reached up to wipe the sweat from his forehead. The work had been hot, cramped, exhausting. He should get some of this analyzed. Whatever it was, it shouldn't be clogging a municipal water system. He found a clean sample container in his kit and scooped some of the substance into it, sealing it tight. Tomorrow, he'd send it off for testing to figure out what they were dealing with. Back at the motel, Elias showered for a long time, scrubbing his hands and arms until the skin was pink. But he couldn't shake the memory of that cold, slick texture, the way it had seemed to pulse against his fingers. Friday morning, Elias woke with his mouth tasting faintly of chemicals. He brushed his teeth twice, but the taste lingered, subtle and wrong. Probably just stress, he thought, or the water here had a mineral content he wasn't used to. At the plant, he had carefully stored the sample container in the small refrigerator in the break room, next to someone's forgotten lunch. He'd call a lab today, get it shipped out, find out what they were dealing with. But the day got away from him. There were other repairs to make, other systems to check. By the time he got back to his room that evening, he was exhausted. He'd make the call tomorrow, Saturday, first thing. Saturday came and went. The sample sat in the plant's refrigerator, and Elias thought about it several times, meaning to do something. But the impulse kept slipping away, like trying to hold onto a dream after waking. It could wait until Monday. The system was running fine now. No rush. Chapter 3. The Change. Sunday, he slept late. When he finally got up, his reflection in the bathroom mirror looked slightly off. His skin had a subtle sheen to it, catching the light in a way it hadn't before. He touched his face, feeling the texture. Smoother than usual, almost waxy. By Monday of his second week, the chemical taste in his mouth had faded, replaced by nothing. Food didn't taste like much of anything anymore. At Marge's, he ate his breakfast without really registering what it was. The waitress smiled at him with those flat eyes, and he found himself smiling back in exactly the same way. At the plant, Bill found him in the filtration room. You figure out what was causing the pressure drops. Elias looked at him, the answer forming in his mind without him having to think about it. Just sediment buildup in the filters, cleared it out. Systems running fine now. Bill nodded slowly, that same rhythmic motion Elias had seen in the men outside the hardware store. That's good. That's real good. His eyes were very bright. Tuesday, Elias walked Main Street during his lunch break. The woman with the stroller passed him, and their eyes met. Something passed between them. Not recognition exactly, but acknowledgement. His pace matched hers for a moment, their steps falling into perfect synchronization before she turned down a side street. Wednesday, he ate at the Chinese place again. The owner brought sauté chicken to his table, no vegetables, just as he liked it. Elias hadn't ordered, hadn't even sat down yet. The owner just knew. Thursday, his thoughts felt different. Flattened somehow. Simplified. Questions that had nagged at him. What was that substance in the filters? Why did everyone move the same way? Why couldn't he remember what he'd done yesterday? Seemed distant now, unimportant. Friday of his second week, Elias stood in front of the motel mirror and barely recognized himself. His skin had that smooth, seamless quality all over now, reflecting light with a subtle plastic sheen. His eyes were bright and focused on nothing. When he smiled, the expression felt borrowed, learned from watching others rather than coming from inside. The sample still sat in the plant's refrigerator. He'd forgotten why it was there. Chapter 4. The Scouring. Saturday. He walked the same route through town he'd walked every day, though he couldn't remember deciding to walk it. At Marge's, the waitress appeared at his elbow. He ordered without speaking. She poured his coffee without asking. On Sunday, 2 weeks after arriving in Diligen, Elias stood at his post in the water treatment plant, monitoring pressure gauges that no longer needed monitoring. His hands rested on pipes that hummed with more than just water. Bill stood at the far end of the room, and when Elias looked at him, they both nodded at exactly the same tempo. Somewhere deep in what remained of Elias, a final thought surfaced. This is wrong. I should leave. I should. And then, even that was gone, scoured away like sediment in a filter, leaving only the steady pulse of something far greater. The endless flow of water rising from the aquifer far below, spreading through pipes, into homes, into bodies, into the soft tissues of anyone who stayed long enough to drink deeply of what Diligen offered. The town continued its quiet existence in the valley, a postcard-perfect place where nothing ever changed. Elias took his place in the rhythm, one more voice in the chorus, one more cell in something vast and patient that had been growing in the dark water for longer than anyone remembered. And the contamination spread, silent and invisible, waiting. Deep in the aquifer, the water moved through microscopic fissures in the rock, flowing imperceptibly toward distant water tables, inch by inch, year by year, carving its way through stone. Patient, inevitable, unstoppable.